Good morning. I'd like to welcome you to a session going over 9.3 y 9.4 de la sección de estructura de la lección 9 y vamos a empezar hablando de qué y cuál y estamos en la página 316 en el libro de vistas. Estamos en la página 316 si quieren seguir la información. To begin with, you've been using interrogative words and phrases all along, and not to insult anybody's intelligence, but the word interrogative just means interrogative words are just question words, words that ask questions, or who, how, what, when, where, why, kind of words. And as you've learned before, you learned this back in Spanish 1, and you've been using it all through Spanish 2. Que, cual, and cuales all mean what or which. And as you've come to find in Spanish, just because two words mean the same thing, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're interchangeable. And that's the case with que and cual. Now, in Spanish 1, you learned a little bit about when to use each of them, but we're just going to look a little closer at it and refresh your memory now that you have a little more experience with Spanish. Typically, que is used to ask for a definition or an explanation. For example, ¿qué es el flan? In the sense of you've never had flan before, you don't know what it is, and you're just asking, hey, what is flan? What is it? I don't even know. ¿Qué estudias? What do you study? And cual, on the other hand, or cuales, depending on whether you're talking about something singular or something plural, is typically used when there's a choice among several possibilities. For example, ¿cuál de los dos prefieres, el vino o el champán? Which of these do you prefer, wine or champagne? And in a similar sense, if this sentence were just narrowed down to ¿cuál prefieres?, it's understood that evidently there was a choice between two things, okay? ¿Cuáles son tus medias, las negras o las blancas? And this is saying which of the socks are yours, the black ones or the white ones. And cual implies that there's a choice, that there's more than one possibility and you're having to choose among them. There's one little detail about cual, though, that it cannot be used before a noun. So anytime you're asking what or which and then a noun, you have to use the word que rather than cual. Por ejemplo, ¿qué sorpresa te dieron tus amigos? What surprise did your friends give you? ¿Qué colores te gustan? What colors do you like? And here, the word sorpresa and the word colores are both nouns. Oh my. Evidently, I have the highlighter on instead of the pen tool. Sorry. So you've got sorpresa and colores are both nouns, okay? And because those words are nouns, even though you want to say which or maybe what, you can't use the word cual with a noun, okay? I know that when I was in school, my teachers tried to simplify it, and they said, you can't use que with ser. You can't say que es el flan, and really you can, but they were just trying to give us a simplified rule. But sometimes when you oversimplify things, it doesn't always work. So essentially this rule, though, remember that que is used for a definition or an explanation. Cual is typically used when there's a choice among several possibilities, and cual cannot be used before a noun. Okay, so just keep that in mind, and we're going to do a little bit of practice in just a second. And first, I have a question for you. Grant, if you're here live, if you'll take a second and answer this one. Which word do you use before a noun, cual or que? And if you'll select your answer and click submit, you'll get confirmation of the correct answer. Okay, so Grant, you've had time to answer it. And we'll go ahead and keep talking about que and cual real quick. A ver. Okay. When K, well, see, K and qual both mean what or which, no matter what. So when you have it before a noun, it's going to mean which. ¿Qué regalo te gusta? Which gift do you like? And the idea is that there was more than one gift. Which of all the gifts did you like? And so even though ¿qué regalo te gusta isn't asking for a definition or an explanation in that sense, it's asking for someone to make a selection among various possibilities, which sounds a lot like qual. But because of the rule that qual cannot be used before a noun, you've got to use que. All right, so that's what's happening here. ¿Qué dulces quieren ustedes? Which sweets do you want? Which candies do you want? And as we all know, there's hundreds of different kinds of candies, and they're being asked to choose amongst some different ones that are there. And that's the difference between que and qual. Grant, do you have any questions with using que and qual, the difference between the two?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And then what we want to look at next then is just some of the other interrogative words. Just to refresh your memory, you've been using these all the way since day one in Spanish 1, and you did have a section in Spanish 1 where you definitely learn the definitions of all or most of these words that are here. And this is just a chance to review and to refresh your memory, because a lot of people work on just getting the gist of sentences and phrases. And now that you know a little bit more and feel a little bit more comfortable with Spanish now at this point, hopefully, we'll just look back at these to refresh your memory. Let's go through these real quick. ¿A qué hora significa at what time? ¿A dónde significa to where? And with both of these, if you'll notice the a before the word, you'll see it again. Donde over here just means where. But if you say a donde, that means to where. And anytime you're going to use it with the verb ir, the verb to go, like ¿a dónde vamos a comer? Or ¿a dónde fuiste anoche? Where did you go last night? Any form of the verb ir, you'll use ¿a dónde? Okay? And with the ¿a qué hora? Is at what time, but if you're just walking up to somebody on the street and saying, hey, what time is it, like right now, you say, ¿qué hora es, right? But to ask somebody at what time is the math class, ¿a qué hora es la clase de matemática? So a lot of people, at least in my Spanish 1 classes, don't pick up on those differences and use them correctly. And hopefully now in Spanish 2, you've got a little bit experience, and you can notice that difference between the a being there versus it not being there. The next word we'll look at is cómo, cuáles, cuándo, cuánto, cuántos or cuántas, de dónde, qué, and quién, or it can be plural, quiénes, ¿verdad? And hopefully these are all review for you. They're not something brand new that you've never seen before. Grant, do you have any questions about the interrogative words?
No, ma'am. I just know I'm bad to get the cuando and cuanto mixed up sometimes.
Yeah, and the cuando is when, and with the cuanto, they sound so much alike and look so much alike. It's easy to get them confused. But the cuanto and the cuantas, that one, there's the 4 different ones because you're making them agree in gender and in number. And cuando is just when. One way to think about it, the D comes first in the alphabet, and it's like a smaller letter. It's like the 4th letter. And cuanto, the T is a bigger letter, so there's more options with how to use cuanto. That's the way some people remember it. Some things like that confuse people more than they help them, but sometimes those things help. What we're going to do next is just a little bit of practice. And what I'd like for us to do here is decide with these different questions whether we would need the word que or the word cual. whether we mean que or cual. And remember the differences between the two. They both mean what or which, but que is the only one that can be used before a noun. So I've never been a person to necessarily do things in order. If this were me doing this as a homework assignment, I would probably pick out all the ones that have nouns and go ahead and fill those in with que, because you know without a doubt that those have to be K. And then the rest of them you can go through and read for context and decide, hey, is this asking for a definition or an explanation? Okay, well then I need to use K. Is it asking for a selection among various choices? Well then that must be cual or cuales. Everyone has their own strategy, but I know for me that's probably what I would do. And it requires you to understand what's being asked in the question. Grant, could you read the first one and decide whether it's K or qual?
¿Cuál de los dos te gusta más?
Sí, ¿cuál de los dos te gusta más? And in this program, you can't do, excuse me, you can't do the accent marks unless you just hand put them in. You can't cut and paste, and you can't use shortcut keys. So, ¿cuál de los dos te gusta más? What would número dos be, Grant?
¿Qué es tu teléfono?
Okay, this one for me, I think it's K too, but the book says it's qual, and in all books they'll say qual. To me, it doesn't. I think it would be K because you're asking for like your telephone number is a defined number. It's not like selecting amongst. This is one where we can disagree and be friends with the publisher, and they say the answer is qual. And in all books, like when they do, like in the very first lesson, when they do like the intro vocab, like hola, cómo estás, cómo te llamas, a lot of times they'll have that lesson on the numbers, numbers 1 through 20, and it'll have that vocab, ¿cuál es tu teléfono? And they do use qual with it. I can't quite figure out the logic on that one, but maybe because there's a bunch of numbers in it and you're selecting which numbers they are, but it doesn't make sense to me. But it is qual. That one's we can disagree and be friends one. Which ones, Grant, looking at numbers 3 through 10, which numbers do you see have to take K because of a noun?
I guess honestly, this is something I have struggled with and didn't realize.
It's sort of like, I don't know if you've studied the difference between por and para, but it's very, it's not world peace, let's put it that way. There are rules behind it, but it's not necessarily the most important thing. People totally understand you if you interchange que and qual or por and para. The ones that have nouns with them, like this one, que tipo de pastel pediste. Tipo is the word for type, and that's a noun, the type. So that one would take K. Number 7 would also take K because bebidas is a noun, drinks. And then the rest of them, we're going to have to decide if they take K or cual. Like número 4 says blank es una quinceañera. And a quinceañera, if you don't know, it's a sweet 15 party, and that's celebrated in most Hispanic cultures rather than the sweet 16. So it's asking what is a quinceañera, and that one to me at least sounds like it's asking for an explanation or a definition. So with that one, you would put K as well. I got to click enter before I can put the other. ¿Qué es una quinceañera? What about number 5? ¿Qué haces ahora? Oh, I just said the answer. Blank haces ahora. Que, it would be ¿qué haces ahora? Um, and that one is asking for an explanation. What are you doing right now? Remember, the verb hacer means to do or to make, so it's saying, what are you doing right now? ¿Qué haces ahora? What about número 6? Blank son tus platos favoritos. And we know that in the blank, the word is going to end up meaning what or which. What are your favorite dishes? And with that one, Grant, do you have an idea whether it be K or cuáles for that one?
I probably would follow.
¿Cuáles? You're exactly right. And with that one, ¿cuáles son tus platos favoritos? That adjective there, favoritos, is letting us know that they're acknowledging, hey, there's a whole bunch of different dishes, but which ones are your favorites? What are your favorite things to eat? And that's asking someone to select amongst various choices, and that requires the word cuál. And since son is a verb, then we can use the cuáles. Okay? This one, número 8, to me is something I hear people say all the time. Blank es esto, saying, what is this? And that one in and of itself is asking for an explanation. I know when I ask my kids, oftentimes I'll walk into the living room or into the playroom, and it's just like, what is this? What has happened in here? And this one would definitely be, ¿qué es esto? ¿Qué es esto? And then, Grant, do you know what el mejor means in número 9? Okay, el mejor significa the best. So it's asking what is the best. And evidently, to be the best, you have to be better than some other things or ones. So this one would be cuál, because you're asking to select amongst, we don't know, if they're talking about food or clothes or what it is they may be talking about. But there's obviously more than one if one is better than another. El mejor significa the best. And then blank es tu opinión. Here too, we're going to use, let's see, ¿cuál es tu opinión? And for me, I could hear this one being ¿qué es tu opinión? I know that personally, I'm not saying it's correct. I'm just saying that in real life, I probably say ¿qué es tu opinión instead of ¿cuál es tu opinión? And I know that I've had lots of Hispanics tell me, because I'm not a native Spanish speaker, that they can tell I learned some of my Spanish in the street from real people and a lot of my Spanish from books in school. When I was first learning Spanish, the only Spanish I knew was what I had been taught in school. And people who are educated sound different from people who are not. We speak differently. And in English and Spanish, in any language around the world, typically people who have an academic type education speak differently. They know more about all the rules, and they've had them ingrained more into their brains where they have to obey them. And this with K and qual sort of falls into that. There's some of these to me that can fall in a gray area where they could go either way. And I think if you pay attention when you listen to the television or the radio or eavesdrop over people talking in line at Walmart or something, I think you'll hear these kind of go either way. But we want you to know what is the correct way, because we may all use Spanish in different ways. If you're going to be a medical translator at a hospital, you want to know correct, proper Spanish. You want to be professional and come across as knowing professional Spanish, and that's what we're trying to teach us here. But just know that, and I think, Grant, you can identify with this, it's not world peace whether you use que or qua. Would you agree, Grant?
I would agree 100%. Actually, I found myself getting nervous at times. My English, for example, I feel like is on a different education level than my Spanish because I was in a more poor area where I was at, and I learned the Spanish as well. And then when I started learning the proper Spanish, I started noticing some big differences.
Yeah, and I've had that experience. I had the opportunity to learn Spanish from books first, but I didn't really know how to speak it at all. I knew I could tell you rules and I could do any worksheet you put in front of me, but I couldn't carry on a conversation with a real Spanish-speaking person. And then when I went to Mexico and actually learned for real Spanish, it was very different from what I had learned in school. And then I came back to the States and studied Spanish for many, 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 many more years. And it's night and day, real life versus book life. They're the same language, but a lot of things are different. And the more experience you get with both real life and academic life, you'll find that there are some things that matter. And in certain situations, you want to be able to speak in a professional academic way. In other situations, you may just go right over the person's head because they don't know what you're saying anyway. It just depends. The next slide has some more practice with que and cual, and I think I'll leave those for you guys to work on in the assignments that you'll have due with the In Linea site. Try and figure these out, and then maybe in the review section that we'll do next week, we can go over why these were que or cual if you have questions about it. But I want you guys to try and figure out on your own so you can tell the difference between when to use que and when to use cual. All right. Grant, do you have any questions before we move on to the 9.4 section?
No, ma'am, I'm all good.
Okay, well then we're going to move on to the section that talks about pronouns after prepositions. Y está en la página 318 en el libro, la página 318. And to me, just the phrase pronouns after prepositions sounds a little scary as far as the English grammar goes if you're not familiar. Pronouns, remember, are just words that replace a noun. So, for example, instead of saying, my mom went to the store, my mom works as a chef, my mom does this, my mom does that, you can use the pronoun she to replace the noun my mom. Okay, and similarly, if you want to say, my children go to school, my children like to eat ice cream, my children this, my children that, you can replace the noun, my children, with the pronoun they. Okay, so, and a preposition is just a word, it's a connecting word, and they're words like of, for, from, around, about, and they're the same as far as parts of speech. We have the same parts of speech in English as we do it as in Spanish. And what we're going to talk about here is when you're putting sentences together, what you do with a pronoun, words like I, you, he, she, we, they, us, what you do with those words when they come after a preposition, when they're in the predicate part of the sentence. So the object of a preposition is the noun or pronoun that follows it, right? And observe the following diagram. This reminds me of middle school language arts. La sopa es para Alicia y para él. So para means for, and it's a preposition. Who is it for? For Alicia. And it's also for him, para él. Okay? Let's look at these prepositions real quick. If you are using a pronoun after a preposition, some forms, like the yo form and the tu form, you won't put yo or tú. You'll put me or ti. As you look at the rest of these, though, they look just like the subject pronoun. Usted, él, ella, nosotros, ustedes, ellos, ellas. They're the exact same word as the subject pronoun. Here, though, they mean something different because I wouldn't say, I gave the book to we. It would be, I gave the book to us as a family gift. You wouldn't say, I gave the book to they. You say, I gave the book to them. Because these are the prepositional pronouns that are coming in the predicate part of the sentence. These are not the subjects. These are the prepositional pronouns. And the only two that are different here are the words me and ti. Okay? So if you want to say, he brought flowers for me. Él trajo flores para mí. Okay, instead of saying para yo. If you want to say, I brought them for you, las traje para ti, rather than saying las traje para tú. Because in the preposition part of the sentence, just in English we do the same thing. We don't say, I bought these for I. You say, I bought them for myself, right? You use a different kind of word in the predicate part of the sentence if it's not the subject. But in Spanish, something that's a little different is that the word actually looks like the subject pronoun. Here, note that except for me and ti, these pronouns are the same as the subject pronouns as far as the word goes, as how the word's spelled, but it means something different when it's a prepositional pronoun. As a prepositional pronoun, for example, nosotros means us rather than we, okay? The ones that are different are me and ti, and one of preposition is the word con, and it means with, and a lot of times we say things like, are you coming with me, or are you going, is he going with you? And a new word is formed when you use with me and with you. They'll form the words conmigo and contigo. Conmigo and contigo. Okay? Consigo is another word that that happens like with the usted form. It would be consigo. Like if someone is in a furniture store and they're buying some lamps, there's something that could be delivered, but maybe you do want to take it with you, and the attendant might say, lo lleva consigo, con usted, right? So you may see that consigo in real life, but conmigo and contigo are the two that we're working with right now. ¿Quieres venir conmigo a Concepción? Do you want to come with me to Concepción? Sí, gracias, me gustaría ir contigo. Yes, thanks, I would like to go with you. And so that conmigo is with me, contigo is with you, and it's not optional. What I mean here is it's not where you have an option of either saying contigo or conti or con tú. It has to be contigo, okay? And those are the only two that are that way. If you want to say, do you want to come with us, you would say, vienes con nosotros. If I can type, vienes con nosotros. Vienes con nosotros. Sí, voy con ustedes. Do you want to come with us? Yeah, I'll go with you guys. And any other prepositional pronoun that you're using with con, other than me and ti, you just say con whoever. Vas con él. Are you going with him? And the person can say, sí, voy con él. I'm going with him. Okay? It's only with the me and the ti that you have to form a new word, which is either conmigo, which means with me, or contigo, which means with you. Grant, do you have any questions at this point?
I'm good.
Okay. Well, then I've got a question for you and everybody else who's viewing the archive later to answer real quick. It says, how do you say with me in Spanish? And if you'll make your selection and click submit, and then we'll move on. Okay, Grant, I see you had time to complete it. We'll go ahead and move on here. There's one preposition that's called entre, which means, oh wait, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm sorry. This one is just talking about the difference between me and me. They're pronounced the same and they look exactly the same, except for the I has an accent mark. The prepositional pronoun has an accent mark over it. And the reason why they do that is so that it can be different from the word me, which means my. And real quick while we're here, I just want to clarify because in Spanish 1, most students don't really know enough to catch the difference between all these, but they use them incorrectly. And I want to be sure that you guys know the difference between these different words because for especially my students in Spanish 1, these words sound so much alike, me, mis, me, that they sort of know they're something I-ish or me-ish, and they use them interchangeably incorrectly. And I want to be sure that you guys know the difference. This me means my, as in, for example, es mi libro. It is my book, belonging to me. Mis also means my, and if you'll remember with your possessive adjectives, you have to make them agree in number. So son mis libros. I have more than one book, and they belong to me. They're my books. Son mis libros. Me means to me, and so in a sentence like me gusta I can't type, libro. Me gusta el libro. Literally, this sentence means the book is pleasurable to me, okay? And then me with an accent mark means me as well, but it's just me. So in the sense of my mind just drew a blank as far as coming up. Let's see. Este libro es para mí. Okay, este libro es para mí. This book is for me. Okay, para mí. And so just so you know the difference, these words do sound a lot alike. They look a lot alike. And if you never had them explained to you the different ways, you learn so much so fast, you may not have realized that you probably do know this difference. And I expect you at this point to do your best to use these correctly and to know that just because they kind of start with an M doesn't mean that they're interchangeable. Me without the accent mark means my. Me without anything means my as well, and it's used for the plural possessive adjective. Me means to me, and me means just me. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense, and it is tricky. That's why I'm trying to take a chance to explain it, because it does look and sound a lot alike. Grant, do you have any questions with the different me kind of words?
No, I got those.
Okay, good. And the next thing I want to talk about real quick is the preposition entre, which means between. It's followed by tu and yo instead of ti and me. So papá va a sentarse entre tú y yo. Dad is going to sit between you and me. The yo there translates as me rather than I. But you actually use the word yo. So it's just with this preposition entre that you'll use tú and yo instead of ti and me. Okay? And these last slides that are here are some practice, just trying to come up with the different prepositions and who they're referring to. So like this first one, no quiero ir with him. Remember, with means con. And with him is going to be él, no quiero ir con él. And we need just the accent mark over the I, no quiero ir con él. What about número dos, Grant? You want to try that one?
Las galletas son para ella.
Sí, las galletas son para ella. ¿Verdad? Muy bien. And then the los mariscos son para mí. They're for me. So I can put my accent mark over the I. Para mí. What about this one, Grant? It says preferimos estar, and they want to use with you and this plural form. What do you know what that means?
Con ustedes.
Sí, así es. Preferimos estar con ustedes. We prefer to be with you guys or with you all. Okay, so con ustedes. What about this one, Grant, that says with you and then it has familiar? Which one must be that?
Me gusta salir contigo.
Contigo, right? So, let me fix this. Contigo. And this is that special word that you use with, you wouldn't say conti. You use this special word contigo. Okay. What about número 6? ¿Por qué no quieres tener una cita with me? What's the word for with me?
Conmigo.
Conmigo. Muy bien. And then the last one, la cuenta es, the bill is for her. ¿Cómo se dice for her en español, Grant?
Para ella.
Sí, para ella. Para ella. Muy bien. And then the next slide is just some more practice. And again, I'd like to give you guys at home a chance to try and figure these out on your own and see what you can figure out. Before we stop, I just want to clarify, like numbers 14, numbers 8, numbers 9. It has like M period, F period. Any guess, Grant, what that M and the F are standing for when it says for them or with them and then an M or an F?
Masculine and feminine.
Yeah, because remember you can have the ellos or the ellas. So just be aware that that's what that is. Sometimes when things get abbreviated, people get lost. But hopefully you guys know what those are. And if you have any questions as you work through these on your own, feel free to email me. And then if you guys want, in the review session, we can go over to the answers to these other ones as well and talk about why they were the answers that they were. All right, Grant, do you have any questions for me today over the material we've covered so far in Lesson 9?
Sure don't.
Okay, well, I appreciate you coming this morning. I'm going to go ahead and stop the archive.